What's up, everyone? This is DeagleBeagle again. I'm going to upload a second video on how to use Gallade because I actually totally, honestly forgot about this Pokemon. It's like nobody uses it, and I feel like it's really underrated. And I still had it in the top tier list. I'm like, well, I'm thinking about it, and actually, there's more than just ground moves that super affect Iron Hands. Iron Hands is probably the most used Pokemon in Series 2 right now. Also, Fluttermane, Goldango, Iron Bundle are used a lot. I mean, it's kind of diverse right now. It's going to be a lot more centralized soon, but those are among the best Pokemon, even though I think Iron Bundle is overrated because of how much Hydro Pump misses. But anyways, Gallade is really powerful, and I think these are probably the best set in Series 2. In in Series 1, you might want to use actually Choice Band doesn't need Terra. I'll get to that later. If you're using Focus Sash, I would use Terra Psychic because if you look at the damage calculation, you're not going to kill Iron Hands. Now, they may use more bulk than zero bulk in defense and HP, but typically I think they max attack and special defense and maybe some speed, but I think some have run some defense, especially if they use citrus, but not necessarily. And Psycho Cut. See, if you just have Focus Sash, you're not going to one-shot it, but if you use Terra Stall Psychic, you can. So you basically could survive a hit from a Flutter Mane or whatever usually, and you could even use Protect over Ice Punch. In fact, I might want to use Protect over Ice Punch. Or I'll leave this one, but then because Ice Punch, I don't see probably enough dragons to justify it, or Pokemon that like flying types to justify it. So I'm gonna say you could have this set, or you could have this Sash set where you have Protect. I'd probably recommend the Protect one if you're using Sash. And Shadow Sneak's just good for finishing off like Sash anything. Sash Flutter Mane, there's so much Sash. Sash Iron Bundle, whatever. So that's really useful to have. Any little tiny priority move is really good to have in Series 2. You might as well max speed with it since it's Sash, probably. And then this one, the EVs are kind of random, but I figure you can even have a little less attack than this to one-shot Iron Hands and one-shot Garganical, which are probably the two main Pokemon you're trying to, well, not just those two, there's plenty of others, but if you look at the list, you're probably not going to try to one-shot many others. Maybe a Great Tusk or something. Great Tusk can die from whatever kills Iron Hands is going to kill Great Tusk most likely, even with all its defense, just because it has less HP than Iron Hands. And what else would you try to kill with it? King Ambit, that will easily kill if you super affect it. Amoonguss, I suppose, that it could use max defense. It's gonna be killed by whatever kills Iron Hands most likely, and it actually it super affects almost the entire game, the entire top tier, and with Psychic Train it gets a boost too. So in fact, if you use it on the Psychic Train team, you might not even need the to Terra Psychic. So it also is really good sometimes versus Dondozo. You can use a Sacred Sword, and I used to recommend using Tera Fighting. Maybe you still could, especially on the banned one. I think I'll get to that. But if Dondozo, if there's more to worry about than just Dondozo, you might want to use something else. It just depends. You might even want some sort of defensive Tera instead of that, or maybe a Tera like Dark or something. But the problem with Tera Dark with Gallade is they could just moonblast you with Flutter Main. So I would probably actually, believe it or not, use Terra Normal because it is immune to Ghost. Or actually, you could even it might moonblast you because it'll do more damage. But if they look at your Terra type, they may second guess themselves. It's up to you because if you use Steel, yes, you're no longer weak to Fairy, but then you're like neutral to Ghost, and I guess you could do that. It's just really tempting to, well, normal though, they could just, if you have Terra Normal, they could just Moonblast you. So, yeah, maybe not Terra Normal that now that I really think about it. I don't know what Terra really to use with Gallade. It's difficult. You could use different ones. Actually, I would use Terra Fire because you won't get burned, and you resist its most powerful move, which is Moonblast from the Flutter Mane. So I would actually use Fire most likely. You can use a different one. Let's go to the typing chart. What resists Fairy? Fire, Poison, and Steel. But Steel and Poison are not good against like a Shadow Ball. Neither is Fire, but at least Fire walls Goldangos Make It Rain, and Arcanine's or some other Pokemon's Will-O-Wisp. So actually Terra Fire is probably the most ideal, but you can also use Terra Fighting if you want and beat beat and use like max attack maybe, even though I don't know if I would. And the 20, by the way, special defense is to wall a Flutter Mane. So the 4 in speed, you may or may not, you may want actually more speed than min speed, by the way. I just don't want to I don't want to like encourage speed creeps, but you probably need, depends on what you're running, enough to outspeed Iron Bundle and Tailwind, or depends on what you're trying to do. You got to look at the speed tiers. I have them on my blog. So if you go to the speed tiers, the Pokemon that you could outspeed with low investment, not much really. I mean, maybe just Tyranitar if you want. You could have 114 speed or outspeed Pelipper maybe. So you can outspeed it before it hurricanes you. So maybe 118 speed or something like that if you're going to use speed. If it's Sash, I would just max it and you would outspeed even the timid Pelipper, Skeledirge, and whatnot. So I need to add Gallade to this. I don't know why I don't have Gallade on here. Forgot, I guess. So Gallade seems like it has a lot of potential. So check out all these sets. Knockoff on the Choice Band set is for Goldango. I need to stop going all over the place. But Choice Band, you don't necessarily need Terra Psychic. You might actually want either Fire, like I said, or Fighting for the Dondozo. So let me show you Dondozo. If you use Sacred Sword with Terrastall Fighting, it does do more. This is just with the Sash one. If you use Choice Band and you use Max Attack, it could actually one-shot it. But you probably don't need that much. If you even have less, Like even Ben with Choice Ben, it would almost one-shot it, which is amazing. So I think Gallade's going to be a really good Pokemon. If you can wall one Wave Crash, you should be able to beat it. If you use like Gastrodon with this thing, you would really beat it. So I think Gallade is one of the most underrated Pokemon right now in Series 2. In Series 1, I don't think it was that useful, but with like the current meta, how it is, where you happen to have all these Pokemon like weak to Psychic and or Fighting, a decent amount. I mean, Psychic Fighting has good coverage, then yeah, I think Gallade could be pretty good. Metacam would be decent as well, but I really only put it in top tier because it's one of the only great fake outers that with Sash you can like wall hits and you can wall a hit and then hit back a second time, hopefully. With Gallade, it doesn't have the fake out. So I think that's the only thing between Gallade and the main thing between Gallade and Metacam is the let's just double check. And Sacred Sword is probably a better move in general than Close Combat. When you get Sharpness, well, it is for sure better because it's more power, and it doesn't lower defenses. It counters them even if they use Iron Defense. You would have to use you would use a very similar set with Metacam though, and Fake Out and I don't know Bullet Punch or something, which is similar to Shadow Sneak. So instead of Close Combat though, you could use Low Kick. But if you're using Sash, I would probably just use Close Combat so it always does 120 power instead of worrying about it doing less damage. But if it wasn't Sash, I would use Low Kick with it. Okay, thanks for watching this video about Gallade. Check out my other video about Gallade for Series 1. I'll link it in the description.